Welcome to the November 5th, 2019 episode of Reactive Consciousness, our in-depth podcast about what happened this week in our lives. I'm your host, Viz the Bold, and this is...
Lotus, Prince.
And... crickets.
Yeah, we had to fire Falcafon. I'm sorry.
It was daylight savings time, and Canada got lost in the shuffle.
All right. In the shuffle.
I actually think they adhere to daylight savings time.
Really, everyone gets lost in the shuffle because daylight saving is fucking stupid.
Yeah, it has no purpose now. Used to make sense, but not so much anymore.
And even then, it was annoying.
Yeah, well, there's a reason why parts of the country didn't agree to it.
Yeah.
So, anyways, so we have some pretty big doozies this week to go over. Some pretty serious stuff. First of all, there's been quite a bit of strife in the journalism end of things right now. So if you haven't been following this, this has actually been a really big thing. But both Deadspin and Kotaku went through some major weird things this week. Deadspin is basically dead. So I don't know if you've been following this at all, have you?
I've seen more about Deadspin than I have with Kotaku. I just heard that stuff was happening with Kotaku, but I've seen more retweets and stuff like that with Deadspin. The main thing that I'd heard is that one of their bosses or whatever told them to just stick to sports articles. I think it was stop writing non-sports articles. So they exclusively started writing non-sports articles as a big fuck you, which is not good for their jobs, apparently. I think everyone's sacked, but sweet move anyway.
Well, the thing is, I guess they were trying to change the format of the website, and the readers were basically no, we want to keep it the way it is. Of course, the readers really want that because that's the reason why they're there.
Well, not only that, but fans of anything want consistency. Even if something were bad, the people who latch on to it will be keep doing more of this.
Yeah, and hence our existence. But
hey, that's why I still watch Star Wars movies.
Oh, the memories.
Except for Solo, I actually have not seen Solo.
Solo is actually underrated.
Yeah, I heard it was alright, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty good movie. I think out of all the recent movies, it's actually one of the better ones. But anyway, so here is the article that is on the front page of Deadspin right now. It's actually kind of funny. If you try to go to Deadspin, it redirects you. So I think Deadspin. Let me see what it brings up. If I bring up Deadspin, no, it doesn't redirect anymore. But there was a big thing that happened there. They basically the entire office the entire office quit amongst all of these changes, and en masse, and now they're basically paying scabs essentially. So I'm of course in support of the writers, but they didn't talk this over with their editorial staff. The thing is with these mandates, these corporate mandates nowadays, they just kind of spring them on people, and they don't even really have a plan put in place for the people that are creating their content. So of course they're gonna say fuck you to you.
Yeah.
So I don't understand this mentality. They think that writers are a dime a dozen, and good writers aren't.
Yeah, I was
really
gonna say good writers are not.
Yeah, exactly.
It beat me to
So
it.
that's a big shame. And Kotaku went through a very similar thing. So Kotaku is one of the former Gawker websites, and Gawker, of course, went through some major problems, especially after the Hulk Hogan thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I'm not even going to get into that. But what ended up happening was a new venture capitalist took over Kotaku and its sibling websites and started putting like autoplay ads on the website, and the entire editorial staff basically rebelled against it and put up an article saying that we do not agree with this.
Autoplay anything can go fuck itself. Even autoplay
Yeah,
YouTube
exactly.
can go fuck itself. Like, don't just spring stuff on me. It's loud and obnoxious, and depending on what kind of computer you're using, it can just lag you like crazy.
Also, I will click on things that I want to see. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
it's just one of those things. And I will not go to your website if it's an annoying ordeal to do so.
Yeah.
So I mean that's the long and short of it. So I've turned off like all the autoplay functions with Twitter and Facebook as it is. And like the way that advertisements work online is getting increasingly intrusive. Kotaku actually has some of the best video game reporting, and like in terms of investigation and things like that. They're the ones who broke the news about Riot Games and a lot of the Me Too stuff that's been going on. They actually do investigative journalism rather than basically just being advertisements for the video game companies, kind of like the old timey, Nintendo Power-y kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So there's a writer by the name of Jason Shearer that does like some of the best work that I've ever read, and he's great. But he basically came out and said, they're basically holding them hostage to these stupid ads. So as of right now, the Kotaku staff hasn't been fired, but I can imagine that things are very, very tense at that office. Depending on what's going on. But I can imagine that, the owners weren't too happy with what happened. With shit canning your own bread and butter on the web page
Yeah.
itself. So it's just one of those things. And it looks like they're trying to unionize, which is a very noble effort. A very difficult thing to do and come out unscathed and to actually enact. I'm in favor of unions when it comes to empowerment of the workforce. Sometimes they can get very cumbersome, and some of them are corrupt. So don't get me wrong. I think that unions do have their issues, but overall, the concept of them and the good that they can do are very good,
Well, yeah.
especially with teachers.
Without unions, we'd still be working 7 days a week and like have like child labor. I think.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that nothing is perfect, but you better believe that I want the power to unionize that rather than not. Don't think that I think they're flawless. I don't think that. However, I am a union supporter overall. Uh, so um, uh, you know, uh, my parents were teachers back in the day. I was a teacher for a while. You are a teacher. Um, you know it. Uh, it's a vital part um, of of this job, and especially in jobs where your labor is exploited too much. And I am from the business perspective, I know you got to make a buck, but not the way that these mega corporations are doing it and things
Yeah.
like that. Um, I am very much in favor of journalists unionizing. I'm very much in favor of voice actors unionizing. Like all the other actors and screenwriters have unions, and for good reason, because they were exploited for so long. And voice actors don't have a union, so they're basically getting they don't have standardized benefits or anything like that. It's terrible for them. They a lot of them do it for just the love of it. If they're lucky enough to be able to do it for a living. So it's this kind of stuff. I love seeing that. The workers are being heard, because way too often than not, I see them on the short end of the stick. So it's good to see them protected in one way or another, especially in an era where the workforce is tenuous. Having a job, having a full-time job is a tough thing to come by. A lot of people work a lot of part-time jobs, so it's this kind of thing is needed this day and age. So I don't know your opinions on this, Lotus, of course, but
I myself work 2 part-time jobs.
Of course.
Like, it sure would be nice if people would pay their employees a proper living wage, so wouldn't have to do that, but here we are.
Yeah, I was the same way until just recently, and I had to beg and plead for a full-time job at my institution. So before that, I did bar back work despite my 2 master's degrees.
Yep.
and over 10 plus years in the workforce. 15 years worth of experience, I'll say, in the workforce. I've been working ever since my teenage years. So
yeah, I've been working I did retail when I was much younger, but I have 8 years of experience in my field. It's like, how much more do you need?
Yeah. You're the very definition of a seasoned teacher. You're not out of college and you're not close to retirement. So.
Yeah, I'm 33 and I have part-time. Go fuck yourself.
Exactly. So, and unfortunately, your segment is of the workforce is not unionized. So
no, it is. There's a union.
There's a union for college.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow. Well, there you go.
Yeah, they actually recently fought to try to increase pay for the adjuncts.
Good. See, this is why you need this kind of stuff, because they'll keep you at the same exact price all the time, despite hikes in tuition.
Yeah, the institution I work at was actually considering striking, and that would have been the first time in its history. It didn't end up happening, but that would have been outside. That would have probably made news outside of New Jersey, just because it's a historical event.
Did you get what you wanted, or at least something?
Yes, kind of. Yes,
yeah.
It wasn't what we wanted, but it's it's a step.
Yeah, well, even something at all is due to the unionization efforts.
Absolutely.
So, I think it's doing its job, but I'm there with our friends at Kotaku and Deadspin. I don't know anybody personally, but I'm there in spirit. I mean, I've worked for free. I've worked for pennies, writing. I've worked for exposure, writing and making videos and stuff like that. Even, the stuff I do, the podcast here is for fun, to be honest. But
you don't have a boss telling you what to do with your podcast, and it's oh well, people will see your stuff and comment on you if you podcast, and you're oh cool, sounds good to me. No, this is your podcast.
Yeah, I'm my own boss, and
well, why don't you pay yourself more?
I wish I pay myself in negative money.
Yeah, take out your wallet and put it into your the money into your other hand. Wow, thanks, me.
Well, I mean, if we had the kind of numbers and sponsorship in order to do that, I could pay myself, but and keep money in the pocket for incidentals for us to record with. Sure. But I'm saying that even in other situations, I've worked for free for websites and things like that, and I've also been a part of websites that I didn't agree with everything that was going on there. So
even being on Channel Awesome, I was on Channel Awesome for several years, that paid in exposure because like that actually kind of did because like
Yeah, but you
back
got in at the right time, just the right time for it,
well that was
right?
well I was a little past the right time but it was still decent enough. But like that was when people put their videos on blip.tv where unless people went to the blip website to look for videos, which nobody fucking does, you were not going to get seen unless you were embedded so like in somewhere else, and Channel Awesome was a place that people went to, so that's how I got my initial views. But at this point nobody even knew I was on there for the past several years that I was on there, so like never mind about that, I guess.
Yeah, yeah,
Paying me in not even exposure, the potential to be exposed. I don't know.
yeah. Ridiculous. Well, moving on from that, there is a uh, so there's another story going on right now, kind of as we speak. It's developing. Amazon and Nintendo have brokered a deal to remove classic game sellers off of Amazon. So, have you read anything about this, or
This I
have you
did not
followed
know.
anything? Okay, so there was a story that The Verge reported on earlier this week about this. So, apparently, the wide held assumption was that Amazon was taking the entirety of used Nintendo game sales off of Amazon, which is devastating. That is awful.
Yeah.
Amazon is one of the biggest marketplaces. That them and eBay are the biggest marketplaces for used games. So it's come to light that and they would lose a lot of sellers and customers over
Yeah.
this. So it has come to light that Amazon wasn't wasn't clear about what they were announcing in their email.
Okay.
Essentially, this is their. They have since clarified, and it's not nearly as bad. It's their attempt to get rid of counterfeit sellers of old games.
Okay. Okay.
So that
Like
is a
repro
good
cards that
thing.
aren't labeled as repro cards and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
exactly. Exactly. There is going to be an approval policy for people to sell used games like this. You know, this is for the cartridge-based stuff, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and because there are a lot of people making repro cards and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, and they went through a similar kind of schism here with Apple resellers a year or two ago, but that's what's coming to light. But they are implementing an approval process, which I think is still needs to be ironed out or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
that's that stinks still because it also keeps legitimate sellers out of it because they need to get
Yeah.
through red tape. Um, but um, it's at least a not what everybody thought. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
It's something different. So in one way, it is protecting customers from buying uh, you know uh, something that they don't know the nature of, which is good. There's going to be more transparency. On the other end, there's another hurdle for the small guy to jump through in order
Yeah.
to make a buck on here. So or maybe just somebody who wants to get rid of some of their old collection. Doesn't necessarily want to have a long-term business or anything. So. This isn't as bad as it looked, but it's still a
Yeah. A
little
little
hinky for me.
obnoxious. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I could see a world where companies would try to enforce this kind of thing, and it it would be really shitty of Nintendo to do this kind of thing, especially considering that like some of their biggest companies, i.e., like somebody like myself, I know that I'm in the top tier of people who buy uh, like games from them. I have to be, um, and I'm also the kind of person that buys old stuff too. So you're punishing me in order to sound altruistic
Well, yeah.
for
It's not seeing
selling.
the forest for the trees.
Exactly. You're you you know the the kind of people that are buying this stuff know what they're doing generally. They're people that maintain their old video game systems and upgrade them and all this other stuff, and are looking for collector's items. They're not the same people that are on your Switch eSpace buying that. I'm on there for a different reason, and so is everybody else. They're two separate markets, essentially, and I would even say that one informs the other. You know what I mean? Like, getting exposure to a rare but really awesome Nintendo game may inspire me to go back and buy the original cartridge, for instance, if I had played the digital version of it, and vice versa. So I mean, I think they're two different spaces, and two different markets, and they really shouldn't be worried about it. They really shouldn't be worried about even the guy who buys the illegal Super Nintendo cart. Like, you shouldn't be worried about that guy, because you were never going to make money off him to begin with, and they're doing something different. Unless you're going to put out your own Super Nintendo carts, the segment of the population that you've ignored up until this point. If they really wanted to capitalize on this market, they could, but they just don't want to. They want to sell you a Nintendo subscription and give you a few games that way, but not all of them. Still disappointing. But anyway, moving on from there, Blizzard, who's not very high on my list of fun developers at the moment, did announce Diablo 4. This is something that I didn't really expect, but from what I understand, Diablo 3 was a good fun game. So after a long time, like Facofon was kind of. Was it Facofon said something about this? Maybe.
I don't
Diablo
remember.
3.
I mean, I know Pyro played it.
Yeah, I think after a while, Diablo 3 became a classic. It had kind of a rough launch, but then it found its feet. So that's cool. I mean, that's what people wanted. People didn't want that Diablo mobile game that they announced a couple years back, and everybody got upset about.
Well, what's to get upset about? Don't you have phones?
Jesus.
Is this an out of season April Fool's joke?
Yeah, I don't know.
What a fucking legend.
Jesus. How tone deaf can you be? I mean, like.
Well, it probably wasn't. It was probably just catering to the Chinese market.
Yeah, but that's not
what was
where
tone deaf was announcing it at an American event.
That's what I mean. You have to say it at the right place and time and in the right way, and none of those things
in the right country.
Yeah, in the right country. Yeah. So I'm sure there are a lot of people that are looking forward to that, but I never was a really big Diablo fan, but I may at one point play Diablo 3 on Switch because it's nice and accessible, and apparently that's a good version. But I got so many other things to play. I'd rather play Disco Elysium before I play that, or The Outer Worlds, or something like that. So. Moving on from that, so this is just kind of a funny tweet. I don't know whether they're serious or not, because who the hell knows with Devolver?
Well, actually, before you get to Devolver, one other thing is Blizzard also announced Overwatch 2.
Oh yeah, didn't we talk about that last week? We
think
did
so,
talk
but
about
now there's been like a cinematic for it and everything, so you get to see a couple of the classic characters back again. It was like, yay! It's my favorites.
They're all here.
Yeah, my favorite Chewie. But yeah, they had Mei, they had Tracer, they had Winston, they had Genji. It was a good time. They had Reinhardt, they had Brigitte. Always fun.
I broke my Wookiee.
Yeah, anyway. I bent my Wookiee.
I bent my Wookiee. But anyway, Devolver tweeted this out just like out of the blue to like absolutely no one, : ... Devolver minute Gato Roboto and Downwell are all set in the same universe 1,000 years apart.
All right, thanks. That game where you dive down an infinite well, it makes sense somehow. Don't worry.
Like, is that 1,000 years in the future or in the past?
I
What,
don't
like,
fucking care.
Downwell, the only indication that there is any,
The
like, there's a
graphic styles.
lamppost. There's a lamppost and you have rocket boots. So I don't know how that's supposed to
There are
inform
frogs. Those
what
only exist in
time.
the future.
Exactly. I don't know how that's supposed to inform anything. They're also all made by different people. They all three of them have different developers.
It's fine.
But
Don't worry about it.
I think they were just saying that just because they're all black and white games and they all kind of have like
Either the 8-bit style.
yeah, Devolver's like, you know, it seems like Devolver has kind of a house style. They usually have a lot of they publish a lot of pixelated games, not exclusively.
I wonder if Ape Out plays into this greater universe.
Well, Ape Out could conceivably be part of the Hotline Miami universe. Very,
Ape Out
very
with its
easily.
Whiplash soundtrack.
But yeah, they just tweet this and then don't like follow up on it at all, which is hilarious. So who knows whether they were being serious or not, or whether I think it's one of those like who gives a shit, like
Yeah.
like these games barely have any story as it is. I mean the Gato Roboto has like a mild story for sure. But
speaking of weird little bizarre trivia things, I learned this a few days ago on a Discord group. Apparently, the ending cutscenes of Death Stranding push like 2 hours.
Oh wow,
that is like peak Kojima.
So yeah, I forgot to put this in the notes, but Death Stranding is apparently like an acquired taste, which is a surprise to no one.
Yeah, I know.
Even
Metal Gear was an acquired taste back in the day.
I am looking forward to a AAA game where somebody takes some risks. So
well, yeah, like one of the things I saw was like it's not necessarily fun, but a game doesn't have to be fun to be good, and it's like I 100% agree.
Yeah, exactly.
I can get behind that easily.
And a game can be extremely flawed, but I could still be glad that I played it have it. You know, that it exists. I might not want to play it again, but I'm glad that I went through it.
Oh,
sure. So you know, just like Alone in the Dark for the Wii.
That is one of maybe 3 games, maybe 3 in my life I've just abandoned midway.
Yeah, I know. That's why.
And one of those games, by the way, I actually came back and beat, which was Jet Force Gemini. And I did not abandon that because it sucked. I abandoned it because that final boss is some bullshit.
Well, it was a poorly designed game. It has a
there's definitely some jank.
yeah, exactly. But that doesn't mean it wasn't good or wasn't good or fun. Yeah, me too. Going along with that, Devolver announced that they have a book coming out, Devolver Behind the Scenes Business and Punk Attitude, which is really pretty cool. It's by Arthur Baptiste Perron and Pierre Maugain. So this looks really cool. I generally don't buy like kind of fan servicey books, but this definitely looks like something that is up my alley, especially considering that Devolver is a really cool company, and I don't know much about the behind-the-scenes stuff with them, so I would kind of like to get a better picture of kind of how they started and like how they convinced a lot of these really cool indie developers to work with them. So I'm all for that. So I'm probably going to order that, and it seems pretty reasonable. If you want there's like a regular edition and a collector's edition. The collector's edition is $40 for a hardcover for 224 pages, which I think that's very reasonable.
By the way, speaking of behind the scenes stuff,
price.
I actually recently got my limited run games copy of Corpse Killer for PS4 in the mail, and there's a sort of, I guess, kind of instruction manual, but it's more of like a behind the scenes thing. It's called like Behind the Zombies or whatever. And there's a bunch of just pictures of like on the set the guys like getting into zombie costumes and stuff. It's like Nice. Like there's a behind the scenes I never thought would exist for Corpse Killer for
That's
the
so
Sega
funny.
Saturn and the Sega CD. Like, all right,
It was originally for
with
a VCR system,
oh my
which is
god.
even funnier.
Okay.
Yep.
And now it's in glorious, glorious HD.
I'm
Wow,
so
finally,
happy for
real
you.
life gets the HD treatment.
A couple quick announcements. There wasn't much substance to these announcements, so I'm just gonna kind of drop them here. Enter the Spider-Verse 2 was teased and announced.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I'm really cool with that. Probably part of the deal that Sony and Disney made recently in order to keep the Disney side of things going. I'm
I
sure
wonder if they
this was
meet
part of it.
like a bunch of still different Spider Verse characters,
Oh yeah,
like
me too.
Six Armed Spider Man and like Steel Armor Spider Man, stuff like that.
Sure. And I mean they teased Spider-Man 2099, so he's probably going to be
That's true.
involved at some point.
You know, like I'm
So
thinking like Spider Man for the PS4 had a bunch of costumes you can get. And one of the last ones would be an amusing Spider Verse thing to cross over with, even though there's no way they would because it's like way too potentially backstory heavy, but where Spider-Man got like the Deathlock, like Rob Liefeld treatment, where he's wearing like bandages and he has like a cybernetic eye. It's like, what is this?
how about this? How about like a Spider-Man that like every time he has like spider sense tingling, like he goes through exactly the same animation, just like the one on TV from when we were kids.
Oh,
Exactly the
Mary
same
Jane.
animation.
Where whenever he web slings, it's CG, but any other
Yeah.
time it's 2D animation.
Exactly. But I'm very happy about that. I really liked Enter the Spider-Verse. Did you get a chance to see it?
Yeah, it was great. The post-credit sequence is one of the funnier ones I've seen.
With the Spider-Man know you
Yeah, the
pointing scene.
1960s Spider-Man.
Yeah. But
Which
with
one's the real
Spider-Man
one?
2090.
Which one pointed first? That was amazing. That was so stupid. I loved it.
Yeah, it was really good. That was one of those instances where like a meme actually was funny in the movie.
Yes. By the way,
But
regarding Spider Verse stuff, one of my favorite, like, kind of twists was going back to the '90s Spider Man, like the Fox Kids TV show,
sure.
where he eventually does team up with 5 or 6 other Spider Men. And
Hmm.
one thing was kind of funny. He pulls off his mask and he sees he's blonde. He's like, I don't even want to know your deal. And that was like a wink at Ben Riley. But
Yeah, sure.
but there was one other Spider Man who's like, so what's your deal? And he's like, nothing really. I'm not special. I'm like, okay, and they just kind of drop it for a little while, and then at the end it's revealed that he's an actor, like in real life, like in our world,
Oh wow.
who plays Spider-Man. So Spider-Man crossed over with the real world.
He
That was bizarre.
he was one of the people in Into the Dark.
Oh yeah. What was it, like Enter the what was it called? It was
Into the Dark.
It was Into.
Into the Dark, I
No, it was
think.
like Don't Fear the Dark. It was something. It was something
Oh,
bizarre.
okay. Yeah. Fear the Dark. I think that's it. Yeah.
What a
But
freaking concept!
yeah.
Wasn't like Carnage in that? How the fuck?
Yeah, like all of the villains were in it somehow.
Carnage! How are you gonna do that in a stage play? Are you fucking
Yeah.
kidding me?
I don't know. Like
He's gonna
everybody was
mass
in it.
murder people? Like, what is this?
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, it obviously wasn't good. But this is just a quick one. I don't have much stake in this, but it's pretty cool. So my fiance is really into them, but Rage Against the Machine announced some 2020 performance dates. They've been on hiatus for a very long time. So
You know who else was on hiatus for a really long time?
who's that?
Well, not hiatus, broken up. My Chemical Romance got back together as well.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
there you go.
very recently.
Yeah.
And
So
I saw people posting like 2019 is like the weirdest year for music. Like Tool released a new album. Like the Gorillaz are back. My Chemical Romance, Rage Against the Machine. Like, what is happening?
one of the biggest things is I think next year we have like in Philly they're playing at Citizens Bank Park, which is where the Phillies play. There is a tour going on with Green Day, Weezer, and Fall Out Boy. Like
God
all three of
damn.
them, all three of them at once. Which like they're all huge acts, so nobody's like leading one into
Yeah.
the other. Nobody's like the starting band or whatever. The
Yeah.
leading band. They're all like huge bands. So
Is Green
yeah.
Day an enemy stand? The answer is yes, it is. By the way,
Maybe a sea anemone.
what was it?
Maybe a sea anemone.
Oh, no, it's not that. It's the stand of Chocolata from Part 5, Vento Oreo.
Uh-oh. So moving on from that.
Anyway,
Well, I haven't gotten to 5, so I don't have any expertise. But this was actually really cool to hear. This game is pretty scrappy. It seems like some people really like it, and some people are just like not even trying it.
what, Contra Road Core?
Contra Road Core.
I heard
Yeah.
most people really didn't like it.
So, um, there must be a sizable amount of people that are buying it and still playing it. Because they came out with a major patch with new levels, new enemies, and new skins, which is pretty cool. It is an unusual game. Probably if they had called it anything else, people would have thought it was okay.
Yeah,
It's just one of those things. But
it's the Zelda
there's
2 of the Contra video games.
exactly. So they added a Bill Riser character skin for Krauser, which is pretty cool. So you could be the original main protagonist of the Contra series, which is pretty neat.
Thank
And
God, he has such personality.
yeah, he has a big stogie and a bunch of bullets. It's pretty awesome. And this is pretty cool. Apparently, there is a new level completely based around like Bomberman nostalgia, which is
Okay.
pretty cool. So I'm looking forward to that when I get back to playing that. I've been playing Dragon Quest XI, and that's taking up a
Yeah.
lot of my time. And I'll probably end up. I've been playing that pretty steadily. It's probably the furthest I've ever gotten into a Dragon Quest game. And they're freaking long games. Most of
They
them are
are,
100
yeah.
hours long. Um, I'm glad that I'm playing it, but I'm definitely going to get distracted by Death Stranding. I am playing that once it comes out because uh, I have a feeling that if I don't, I'm going to be completely spoiled just by through osmosis. So I kind of just want to play it as it comes out and be surprised on my own,
I'll
that
buy it
kind
in
of
a
thing.
few years when it goes down in price. Like
Yeah,
I really don't
I know.
have a need to play that game right now. I haven't played Metal Gear Solid 5 yet.
Fair enough, but I kind of want part of the experience for me to be surprised. So,
Yeah. I mean, I'll
um,
still avoid spoilers. I just don't have an incentive, or not an incentive. I don't have an urge to play it.
sure, that makes sense.
I've actually been playing Arkham Knight lately. I waited years to get started on that one, and I'm nearly done. Actually, I actually am being that guy and going for the Riddler trophies,
Oh wow,
and I have like 30 something left. I'm really
not
cleaning
bad.
up. Yeah, out of 243, like I'm really cleaning up.
So I never beat the third one. That's the third one, right?
Yeah, that's the third one,
Okay.
and from the way a lot of plot points went down, even earlier in the game, this is like I don't see them doing a four. I think Rocksteady already said they're not doing another one, but like it looks like there's like I don't think you could really go farther from where this takes you. It just escalates everything so much.
Well, they could do something like in a different style world. Like they could do it in like an Adam West style town or something like
Oh, if they
that
just did it,
instead.
if they just like did a different story entirely.
Yeah, but with the same engine and same kind of mechanics.
Well, that I
Um,
can believe, but I mean, like, as far as, like, City is a sequel to Asylum, Night is a sequel to
sure.
City, I don't think Night's gonna have a sequel. It's just not looking like it's setting up for one at all.
They could probably do a sequel to Origin. Um,
That was a different company, so I guess they can do
yeah.
whatever the hell they want with that.
Sure, exactly. Well, it was a different developer. It was the same publisher, so
Okay.
um, yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to see. Apparently, they teased something a little while ago about that.
What, a sequel
Maybe
to
that there's
Origin?
something's coming. Like in the Arkham series.
Okay.
They
Yeah,
said something.
I never tried Origin. But the trilogy, I'm quite enjoying.
Yeah, I enjoyed the first two quite a bit. I like the first one better because it's a more of a self-contained space.
It's a little more intimate.
Exactly, exactly. It's more of a Metroidvania, which I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, because like
Uh,
I love City and Night, but like it comes to a point where it's like your objective point's over there, and you're like, all right, so you gotta like travel for a
you have to
while.
schlep.
Yeah, that's the perfect word. Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, I love those games, so I welcome anything else new in it.
and it's always great to see, especially in the side content, what villains show up. Because like anyone who's not integral to the story, it's like, oh, they have Calendar Man in fucking Arkham City. Like he's not a side quest, but you're like they have
He's
Calendar
in
Man in
there,
this game.
yeah.
Like what the fuck? Like they have the Mad Hatter and Night. It's like what? Like so there's weird stuff like that, which is pretty fun. Actually, Mad Hatter was in the city as well. I think
Yeah, I think everybody shows up a little bit.
a lot. Like that they have weird cameos of people I never even heard of. Like there are two villains that show up in Arkham Knight that I've never heard of.
Oh, who's that?
Deacon Blackfire
I don't know that one either.
and Professor Pig. He's brand new. He's from
Oh,
like
I know Professor
2007.
Pig. I
I've
actually know
never heard of this
Professor
character.
Pig.
I was like, what the fuck?
He is a Grant Morrison bad guy. He's during he showed up during all of that like Batman and Son kind of stuff.
Okay.
So that's how I know about him. My only tie to anything recent in like DC mainstream continuity is if I read any Grant Morrison stuff, and
Yeah.
he's one of them. But yeah, he sucks.
Yeah,
He's
he's fucked up.
disgusting.
He doesn't even
Yeah.
seem like a Batman villain. He seems like just some edgy comic, like, what if I did this fucked up thing? It just feels weird for him to be in the Batman universe. I don't know. He feels like a different comic books villain.
Well,
Like, he's the first boss in Bioshock. It just weirded me out.
he is a character that made sense in the style of the comic he was in.
Okay.
So Batman. What's great about him is that you could place him in a lot of different styles,
Well, yeah,
and
there's like
it
different
works.
Batman. There's different versions of Batman.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly,
that's
and
fair. Like Brave and the Bold Batman would not fit at all in Arkham games, etc.
exactly. So they had a grittier thing going on where he was investigating like mass murderers and things like
Yeah,
that,
well, that'll do it.
and he was a big part of this thing. So
It's just great because you lock a bunch of villains in like the same cell, so you'll have like classic villains and like this guy next to each other. What's cool is when you talk to them, sometimes another villain will respond, and like what's great is that like both Two-Face and Deacon Blackfire, like when Professor Pig was done talking, like what the fuck is wrong with you? Like it's amazing.
He is like a couple of these guys are just like throwing riddles around and just being menacing, and this guy's like just fucked up.
Yeah, it's also really fun to see how other people interact with the Riddler. It's so good. Catwoman calls him a man-child to his face. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I like Professor Pig, especially because of the artist who first rendered him. Just
Yeah.
like it was perfect. It was Frank Quietly, and he's just perfect. So
Yeah.
I'll have to lend you those stories because they're really quite good.
Gotcha.
But moving on from that, so Toby Fox, the creator of Undertale and Deltarune, announced that he was asked to compose a track for Pokemon Sword and Shield. This goes along with like last couple things I talked about with him. Like he is like living like the dream.
Yeah, he really is. He plays Smash Brothers in Sakurai's house.
Yeah, just like
what?
insanity. Somebody who's such a big fan of this stuff that he actually, and was able to create something that was on par with it, or like even surpassed it in some ways, and is revered as such.
Just the idea that his indie game would get a shout out in a Nintendo Direct, like that's insane.
Yeah, and this is a person who is part of the community of people that they don't like.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a ROM hacker. Like his roots are in ROM hacking.
Well, isn't that like it's not literally the same thing, but it's like Christian Whitehead. He was like a modder,
Yeah.
and then now he just works for Sega.
Yeah, I mean, he was coming up with his own engine in order to run, you know,
Sonic CD.
Sonic CD and other stuff like that. Yeah, and in full HD, and he he had the chops and made Sonic Mania, which was a huge success. So, speaking of, so Headcanon, who are the makers of the Freedom Planet games,
Mm-hmm.
uh, who also Christian Whitehead has supplied his
Headcanon. What an appropriate name, considering that it's basically a not Sonic game that everyone wished would be made at the time.
but yeah, he supplied his engine to the Headcanon games.
Very
So
nice.
he's worked on those in the past. They've announced a new Kickstarter campaign, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get a chance to take a look at this?
No.
So they have a new game called Vertebreaker
That's a great name, by the way.
coming out. It kind of looks like almost to have the aesthetic similar to like Castlevania mixed with like Decap Attack almost like
What?
yeah like you know like
So when you beat a
everything's
level,
little
does it reveal
spooky.
that all the islands make up a body and slowly come together?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but it definitely has a. It's actually like when you see it in motion, it very much feels. It looks like it feels like Ristar. If you ever played Ristar,
I've seen it
um,
played.
so Ristar it was by Sonic Team, a very underrated Sonic Team game, and you basically have this like this spinal cord thing that you whip around like Bionic Commando style and latch to like ceilings and branches and
Jesus.
stuff like that. And you also use it to garner momentum. So
Is it
like
your
it's
spinal cord?
I believe
So that
so.
is like the Cap Attack.
Instead of like revving up like you would with Sonic, to do a spin dash,
Yeah.
you would actually use your momentum in springing back and forth with your spinal cord,
Oh, okay. I
and
could kind of see
and
that.
like that's actually how you gain momentum, so you can like shoot up walls and stuff like that if there's a ramp,
Yeah.
attack bad
Whereas in,
guys.
in Rystar, you would grab something and pull back with your stretchy arms and then release. So
Yes,
like you slingshot yourself.
so you know where I got that idea
Yeah.
from.
By the way, here's a fun fact about Rystar that I never knew until I saw it speedrun. You know how like if you just wait with Sonic like invented the idle animation. He'd
Yeah,
tap his foot impatiently, like, "Hey
sure.
player, why are you not playing the game?" Rystar has a different idle animation for each level, which is pretty.
Wow.
Like in the snow level, he'll make a little snowman. It's like it's great.
Well, Ristar, Ristar, whatever.
Yeah, I don't know.
Who knows what
Yeah.
the? It's probably Ristar
Just
because
like look up the
Japanese
Japanese. Yeah,
Japanese pronunciation would be Ristar. But anyway, it would be like Ristar or whatever.
yeah, I don't
Ristar,
know.
I
Yeah.
don't know, something like that. But anyway, it it looks really really good, and looks like it has some really great fluid animation. I would expect no less from this company, but also guess what the main character's name is?
Oh boy. Is it related to spines in some way?
Yes,
So like, well, Spinal was taken.
it's related to skeletons at least.
Uh, mm, Bone Man, Mr. Bones, even though that
You
was
you
taken.
are very close, but
Uh,
it's very childish. I'll give you this.
Boner.
Yes,
There we go.
but that's his
Because
last name.
I was thinking like, is it like Killer is or not Killer is Dead? Shadows of the Damned, like Johnson.
Oh, his name is Richard Boner.
Oh, fuck off. All right. That's relentlessly immature.
People in the comments are like,
Like, come on.
and the bad guy's name is King Calavera.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that was like a thing. Like a Calavera was that style of skull. Like in Grim
Yeah,
Fandango, your head basically looks like one of those, and your name is Manuel Calavera.
yeah,
I
yeah,
never knew that Calavera was any kind of reference or joke for years.
yeah. So yeah, you play as Dick Boner.
Yep, there you go. Well, again, in Shadows of the Damned, it's like your friend is named Johnson, and everything he turns into is dick names.
Yes.
like the pistols, boner. I
Yes.
forgot what the other ones were called, but they were all dick jokes.
Yeah. The teeth rattler in one of them.
Maybe, sure.
Anyway,
Yeah.
the game looks great despite that.
Despite that, or because
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah. No, it's good stuff. But moving on from that, uh, Bloodstained got its major Switch improvement
Yeah,
update.
yeah.
Did you see the video for this?
No, was it another funny one? Like, shitty
Yes.
version of the game, good
Yes.
version.
So
I will
they
prove
were
it
like,
wrong!
it was like improved frame rate, like no input lag, like
Yeah.
all this other stuff, like everything, better looking textures, like all this other stuff, and it says coming in 2025, and then they cross out 2025, and they're like now.
Nice.
And everybody was like, you got us, and they were like, we know. It's actually pretty cool, like
But
how.
the improvements were significant, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
Like 70% reduced load time or something insane.
Oh yeah, no, they this is exactly what you want. This makes the Switch version a viable version of the game. If you do not own this game already, and or we're just waiting for,
If you want it on the Switch, like now is the time.
yeah, no, this is a viable game now. You can't say that the Switch port is a bad port now. It's not a bad port, not anymore. So it is viable to own this. You won't be disappointed with it, and if you want to play it portably, this is the perfect way to do it. So
I'd rather do it
really
on the
cool.
PSP.
Or the
I'd rather do it on the Game Boy Color.
thegame.com. Moving on from that, this is pretty cool. So we talked about this a little while ago, but Digital Eclipse is putting out the Aladdin Lion King collection,
Yeah.
based off of the Genesis versions of these games.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently,
well, Lion King was okay. It was like specifically designed to be hard because
yes.
assholes. But Aladdin was fantastic.
So Aladdin, a lot of people forget, was I think is the third best-selling game on Genesis. Literally,
And remember that like one of the better selling ones is because it like came with a system, like Sonic 1 or 2 or something.
yes, yeah, exactly. So this game sold on its own merits.
Yeah, it's like Super Mario World is the best seller. Like, well, obviously, like literally everybody got it.
Like Wii Sports is the bestseller, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that should tell you something as well, that like this was a really cool
A
looking
movie
game
licensed
back in the
game is like the top 1 or 2 best selling games that people went out and bought on their own. Like, that's insane.
Yeah, just to give you a perspective on this, the game that is in a similar position on the Super Nintendo, was like a non-system included, a non-pack-in game.
Yeah.
Their highest non-pack-in game was Donkey Kong Country. So
Yeah, that game was revolutionary for its time.
yeah, so this is on par. Like they were both graphical powerhouses, but for different reasons. But they were both graphical showcases for the systems back in the day.
Donkey Kong used CG to its greatest effect at the time, to the point where like the back of the manual just talks about that. We did all sorts of
the
computer
silicon
work.
graphics.
They were clearly
stuff.
proud of that. Whereas Aladdin was, I think wasn't that animated by like actual Disney animators?
So
It's super smooth, like Genesis Aladdin specifically.
Disney animators worked on it, and then the people that were at Virgin Interactive at the time, and then later became Shiny and worked on like the Earthworm Jim games after that, were the people that worked on that.
Yeah, it's very smooth, and like they look like the Disney characters, and they move like them too. It's really well done.
So Digital Eclipse went the extra mile, which they tend to. So Digital Eclipse has recently, like in a lot of their collections, has adds like a lot of extra features that they don't necessarily need to add. Like they're really good at including archival material. For instance, on the SNK collection, 40th anniversary collection, they got all kinds of like advertisements and all kinds of stuff that like planning documents of all these
Yeah.
really old arcade games, and like a lot of really neat stuff like that, and timeline stuff. They dumped a lot of those games. Some of them hadn't been dumped for like a long time. Um, so they've been really good about that kind of stuff. I know with the Mega Man Legacy Collection 1 and 2, they added like the boss rush modes and things like that. So they added extra features to these games.
Mm-hmm.
They added to Aladdin what's called Aladdin: The Final Cut.
Oh.
One of the major uh, criticisms of Aladdin is that it has kind of loose hit detection.
I actually specifically remember in the third or fourth level when you're in the dungeon
Hmm.
trying to escape,
Yeah,
and you have to do that thing where you have to platform your way up blocks
and they're like
that,
disappearing blocks. Yeah, they go
yeah,
in
they
and
go into
out.
the wall, they go back
Yeah,
out. I remember there were a few blocks that you definitely would fall through unless you jumped more to the right than you would think that you would need to, and like if you've played the game a few times, you learn it, you get a feel for it. But if you're playing for the first time, you're like, no, I landed on that. Like you kind of
yeah.
learn to overcompensate for it. It feels weird, so you have to like understand the wonky hit detection in some cases.
Yeah, and I think it just goes along with like the animation. It's just so fluid that it's like it can't line up with realistic hitboxes. That's my interpretation of it. But at any rate, the attacking is kind of wonky like that too. It's
Yeah,
not
you
just the
just kind of
jumping; it's the
mash the attack
attacking.
button and like maybe you get hit, maybe the bad guy gets hit. Like,
Well, apparently they tightened it all up
wow,
in the final cut,
that's great.
so it plays like you think it should.
Okay.
So that's really cool. I was not expecting that. So they actually went back and improved the game. So really cool stuff. So I might actually pick that up because Aladdin was like one of my childhood
It's a great
favorite
game.
games. Yeah.
And there was one little bit of animation I always liked on it, which was if you like your projectile attack is apples, you
Yeah.
throw apples to hit enemies, or you can slash with your sword. For some reason, you have the sword at the end of the movie, at the very beginning of the game. Don't worry about it; it's fine.
It's a video game.
Yeah, fuck it. But what always amused me is there are the knife juggler guys.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's like the guy in the movie that Abu pulled, like he was a sword swallower. Abu pulled the sword out of his mouth. It was like, hooah! But like that guy's just juggling little daggers, and
Yeah.
if you get close, he'll toss one of them your way, and you're like, ah. But if you throw an apple at him and it hits the dagger, the apple just gets cleanly
Cut.
cut in two. I
Yeah.
was like, what? Like that? Like even
Really
as a
cool.
kid, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it was a really gorgeous game and really cool to play at the time. So it's even better now, apparently. So I'm really
Excellent.
happy about that.
Was the
Um,
Lion King designed to not be fucking bullshit?
yeah, yeah.
Because that'd
I
be a
don't know
nice
about
change to be
that.
made as well.
I don't know about that, but I did know about the Aladdin
Because
bit.
like the I just can't wait to be king level is like kind of like a meme within the community. It's like this is the gatekeeper level where kids would
Uh,
just give up.
if you think that's hard, you should play the Elephant Graveyard level. It's way
No,
worse.
I know what you're talking about, but
Yeah,
that would be after that. Like that
yeah.
level is fucking bullshit. That's the level. That's the stopping point
I,
because
I got
nobody
to the
knows how to
very
do
end of
it.
that game, and because I didn't have like the instruction manual with me,
Oh,
because I
you
was
didn't
like
know how to
borrowing
do
it from
the
a
flip
friend,
move.
I didn't know how to kill Scar.
Yeah,
So
the final
fuck
boss
that.
is like unbeatable because you have to know
The one thing
the
that kills
special.
him.
Yeah, like that move that Nala did on Simba where she flipped them with her hind legs and then
But
Simba
see,
pulls it off on Scar. Like you need to know how to do that.
yeah, it's the only time in the game that you need to know how to do that, and you never learned it before.
Like with any other game would have you reduce Scar's health to zero, and
Yes,
then a cutscene would occur where that happens. But no, you have to do that move, and you wouldn't know that that was a thing in the game.
and I didn't.
Yeah.
So I just gave up. Last couple things here. I just wanted to do a quick rest in peace for John Witherspoon. Did you know him about him at all?
I read that he died, but I don't think I'm familiar with his work.
So, I grew up with a lot of his characters, but he was first the father on the Wayans Brothers, which I used to watch when I was a kid, um, and the sitcom The Wayans Brothers,
Yeah,
and then
not the Damodar and the Dungeons and Dragons movie, Wayans brother.
no,
Oddly
no, no.
specific reference, I know.
He dies pretty early on in that movie. But anyway, one of the Wayans brothers is in that, right? The Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Or not Damodar, but the guy who was killed by Damodar. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
Snails.
He's like one of the thieves, right?
Yeah, he's the main character's buddy. They're
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
buddy duo.
yeah, yeah. Was it Jeremy Irons the bad guy? Yeah, something
He
like
was the
that.
best bad guy in any movie ever made. Like, there's a supercut on YouTube of Jeremy Irons acting because he chews the fuck out of the scenery the entire movie. It's so good.
I watched that movie in the theater.
So did I. It was a good time.
But anyway, going on from that, he was also the father in the Friday movies, which I also used to like
Yeah, that's what I'd
quite a
heard
bit.
about. Like, oh, it was the father from Friday, but like I haven't seen any of that.
And he was also Grandpa from the Boondocks, which is
Okay, so I've heard
yeah.
his voice then.
Yes, yeah. His voice is very iconic. He
It's
was a very
distinctive.
funny guy. He played the same character in everything, but he was great.
Yeah,
He was great as the dad. You know, he's just
sure, sure.
really funny. Really good delivery. Just had a unique voice, a unique way of speaking.
Yeah, he does have like a lot of passion in that delivery.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, he's a great actor too. And just like everything he was in, it was just a lot of fun. You knew you were gonna watch something funny if he was in it. So, R.I.P. Especially since the Boondocks actually announced that they're making a comeback.
Oh,
So it's kind of a shame. That he's not going to be able to be a part of it because Aaron Magruder I think said that he made a deal recently with HBO in order to make some new seasons. So it's a shame. It's a shame that he won't be there to be a part of it because he was a great talent. I mean he wasn't super young, so somebody's got
yeah.
you got to go at some point. But I think he was in his mid 70s, which is about time. But it's still a shame. It stinks. So, moving on from that, I wanted to follow up on this because we brought it up before, but the Analog Pocket
Mm-hmm.
does actually have a link cable port.
Nice.
So I
Very
did
nice.
want to mention that because the early shots of it were not very detailed.
Yeah.
Or you couldn't see everything that was on the sides. So it looks to have a Game Boy Advance style link
Very good.
cable. Which is pretty cool, and I imagine you'll be able to use that for linking up to any of the real hardware, which will
Mm-hmm.
be good.
That'd be great.
And I imagine it looks like they're kind of
That
hinting.
implies you could do it with the GameCube too, right? If it's the Game Boy Advance, or I don't know if it's Game Boy Advance 2 GameCube version.
Well, the big problem there is that I don't think physically that cable can fit because it has the little clampy things, and
Okay.
the clampy things have to go somewhere. But theoretically, you could take those clampy things out and make it work. I
Oh,
don't
like
know.
snipping off the tabs on foreign SNES games.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much of that is worth it these days, anyway.
Or I mean snipping off the tabs on your domestic SNES for the
Yeah,
foreign SNES game. But yeah, you get the idea.
I knew what you meant.
Yeah.
There also kind of seems like there is some hint that there might be some kind of wireless system in order to play, multiplayer games. So, if that is the case, I'd be even happier because then I won't need my old link cable or anything, any of that junk. Not that I think I'm ever gonna play multiplayer on any of this stuff.
Yeah.
My main concern is I really want to know what they're doing for like the Neo Geo Pocket Color fighting games,
Mm.
because I hope they have some kind of mode where it's like a blended link mode or something
Yeah, I
like
mean, they
that.
probably have something, because like you said last time, Neo Geo is primarily fighting games. Like, you're not going to
Yeah.
just make a consoleized Neo Geo and then forget to do something about multiplayer. It's like, what are you thinking, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Not to mention that, like, since it's a Game Boy Advance style connector, if you're going to play two-player Neo Geo fighting games, you can't link up to an actual Neo Geo because you would need like an N that would um, one of them would be like a Game Boy Advance style connector, and the other end would need to be the Neo Geo style connector.
Well, who knows? Maybe
Um,
they'll release that later. I mean, they already
who
said they were
knows?
releasing adapters to accept the games themselves later, so maybe they'll have link cables to go with them or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I doubt it, but
Yeah.
I'm banking on a wireless system
Oh,
or
okay.
something, or some kind of. I hope it's like a blended multiplayer mode. What I mean by that is I hope there's a simulation of playing the two-player games all on one screen.
Okay.
Um, because with two controllers, because the way it used to be with the Neo Geo Pocket Color games is like you would each have your screen to play the fighting game, um, and each control it there. You technically only need one screen if you could both view it. So, it, if if you could somehow blend that, that simulation of linking, um, to one screen where everybody just looked off the one screen,
Mm-hmm.
but had two controllers interacting with it, that would probably be best. But I don't know how that's going to work. And that certainly wouldn't work with every game. Like for instance, the card game, the card battling games, the SNK versus Capcom card battling games. You're not supposed to be able to view your opponent's hand.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
who knows? Who knows? But it's cool that it exists. Moving on from there, this is just real quick. EA announced that they're putting games back on Steam with Jedi Fallen Order.
Yeah, that was interesting. Because
Yeah,
EA's been tied to Origin for a while.
yeah, and I think they'll probably still make you like log into Origin, but at least they're selling their games on multiple platforms again,
Yeah.
which is pretty good. It gives you a couple different spaces in order to buy the games, which is good, and also gives you the front end of your choice that you want to interact with. So pretty cool that way. In the same breath, Valve came out and said that almost 100% of Counter Strike Go transactions that are going on right now are linked to fraud networks.
Jeez.
Apparently, like almost 100%. They've been investigating like people like buying and selling keys and skins and all that shit. And apparently, it's been used for money laundering and shit like that. So, um, it's good that they're investigating and they're taking care of these kinds of things. But man, like that's like a whole nother world to me. Like
Yeah.
I really wish it was policed better. Like the fact that you can do this kind of stuff and kids can do this kind of stuff very easily is pretty scary, and it's also for all meaningless stuff in the end. As much as like I like video games and like respect stuff, like like all these skins and stuff. Like why are people paying thousands of dollars for a skin?
Yeah.
Like I don't understand it. Doesn't make sense to me. I understand paying a little bit of money, for something you like, but it has no posterity. Like in 10 years, you're not. Who knows if you'll even be able to use it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the same as you know even a collectible like a physical collectible, which will probably lose its value too. It's just one of those things. I just don't understand. A couple small things before we wrap up. Arcade Archives Mr. Goemon, released on Switch. This is the original Konami Goemon arcade game. This is the
Nice.
very first Goemon game. It's similar to Puyan, not Puyan, Sansan
Oh, okay.
by Capcom. So like it has levels that you can go up and down on, and like you move forward and attack. Um, it's a fun game. It clearly is not what the Goemon series turns into,
Yeah, no.
which is like an RPG action platformer later on, but it's still pretty cool. So I'm glad that it's there. It's been on PS4 for a very long time. Steam World Quest is getting a physical edition, which is pretty neat. I think that's put out by Super Rare Games.
That sounds right, yeah.
Yeah, they were teasing it for a little bit, and they kind of came out with a tease that was like half-assed. Like they like scribbled out like most of the title, but people were able to
Yeah.
discern it almost immediately. So that's pretty cool. The Steam World games are some of my favorites, so I really like those. Lastly, from me at least, there's an Xseed sale going on right now. I always like it when they have like a big, huge publisher sale, and this is
Hmm.
one of them. On Steam, they're doing up to 75% off on all like almost all of their titles. A lot of them are 50% off. You can get like most of the Senran Kagura games for 50% off, which is amazing. Those are all good games. They're a bit embarrassing, but they're all pretty good.
Well,
uh,
I think I mentioned this before, but that Peach Beach Splash thing, there's like nothing there. The other games I like though.
yeah, but the Peach Ball is the real embarrassing one.
Oh, the pinball one. I never
Yeah,
tried
the
that one,
pinball
and I
one.
have no
Yeah,
plan to.
yeah, no, that one's embarrassing. Geez, you can get Gungrave VR for $10, which is really good.
Nice.
Most of the Corpse Party games are discounted to about 40% or 50%, which is really good. Like Sachiko's Hysteric Birthday Bash is 40% off. That's great.
I can't believe we actually got that localized.
Yeah, there's some good stuff here. Bullet Witch is down 70%, which is an interesting game,
Yeah, I
fun
gotta look
game.
into that one actually.
You can get the first two Trails of Cold Steel games that were remastered for a really good price. They're both 30% off, I think, which is really good. You could get both of the Zwei games and most of the Ease games for a very cool song. Yeah, Little King Story. Geez, there's plenty of games on here that are discounted that are really good. Yeah, all of the Ease games up until the last one are here. Um, and Xanadu Next, that's here for $7.50. That's a fucking steal for that game. Trails in the Sky 3, $20 basically. Really good prices for all of these games. So definitely take a look and see if something strikes your fancy. Even if you want to just get like um, the first title in one of these series just to get you going, I would definitely do it. Get the original Savai. Get, um, Oath and Felghana, Ease Oath and Felghana, which is a great place to start playing Ease games in. Get Trails in the Sky 1 for $20. Um, the original Corpse Party for $8.99. That's a steal. So these are all really good. Um, Having said that, do you have anything else to add here, Lotus, before we move on?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, so that is our show for this week. Please remember to subscribe to the Corrective Consciousness YouTube and SoundCloud pages. While there, please give us thumbs ups, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. Helps promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement helps keep the show going. Maybe we might even have a third co-host on eventually again.
We've never had a third co-host.
You can also catch us on Thursdays for our sister podcast, Corrective Consciousness, the podcast where we explore the inanity of pop culture. This week we are going to explore TV shows that descended from movies. Finally, you can friend me on as Vise the Bold on Steam, PSN, Xbox Live, Twitter, and Switch.
And you could follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, if you are interested in seeing my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, which I haven't yet announced it, but the next Let's Play I'm doing is one that was selected for me, or getting involved in conversations with me and other patrons on Discord, then perhaps consider swinging by my Patreon accounts, which can be found at patreon.com/lotusprince.
Wonderful. We will catch everybody on Thursday for another episode of Corrective. Catch you then.
Until next time, everyone.
Bye-bye.